Mangwanani malelepo vukenjani kleklas dumelang vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa. Good morning. The news and current affairs show that remains your portal into Africa's most potent stories. Today we'll be joined by Arrie Hougaard as he delivers the South Africa report later in the show. But prior to that, these are the stories we're looking at from broader Africa. Election results halted as Central African Republic poll staff strike over salaries. Uganda passes revised sovereignty bill after central bank raises economic alarm. China rebukes Eswatini over Taiwan visit in diplomatic travel dispute. President Ramaphosa's Zimbabwe visit draws scrutiny over controversial delegates accompanying Mnangagwa. And African currency strength signals stability amid global economic pressures. DSTV285 GOTV 285 Network Media Hub, and NTVAFRIKA.MY.NA. Keep in mind that Africa is spelled with a K, including the one on NTV Africa that is on YouTube. That's where you can always access the show. My name is Ashwin Berry. Top stories shortly.
Namibia is a land of movement, with waves that never stop reaching forward. Here, adventure is not something we search for. It is something we are born into. In every corner of this country, creativity rises, from artists, from athletes, from dreamers. And when the world comes to explore Namibia, they discover something extraordinary. Because when sport moves people, creativity moves ideas, and tourism moves the world toward us. Something powerful happens. A platform where movement meets imagination, where industries connect, where opportunity grows, where Namibia's next chapter begins. Welcome to the Creative Sport Tourism Expo. Exhibit, partner, experience. Creative sport tourism.
The release of election results in the Central African Republic has been suspended after staff at the National Election Authority launched a strike, creating new uncertainty around the country's fragile political process. According to several ANE employees, IT specialists working at the institution's data processing center are refusing to release the results of the second round of municipal, regional, and parliamentary elections conducted on 26 April. The results had initially been expected on Monday, but have now been delayed because of more than 2 months of unpaid salaries. Staff members say salary arrears affect all employees and note that while delayed payments are common within the country's struggling public sector, the current situation is unprecedented in scale. The Central African Republic remains among the world's poorest nations, where strikes by civil servants, including teachers and administrative workers, have become frequent. Nearly 70 constituencies are affected by the delayed results, leaving candidates waiting for outcomes. Former Prime Minister Anicet Georges Dologuele is among those awaiting results. Dologuele previously challenged President Faustin Archange Touadera's re-election, alleging widespread electoral fraud. Now, Uganda's parliament has approved legislation aimed at curbing alleged foreign influence after scaling back proposed restrictions on foreign funding that the central bank governor warned could trigger economic disaster. The proposal, titled the Protection of Sovereignty Bill, was adopted late on Tuesday and now awaits the signature of President Yoweri Museveni. Museveni, who has ruled since 1986 together with allies in the ruling party, frequently accuses political rivals of receiving funding from abroad and promoting foreign agendas, including LGBTQ rights. Several opposition parties in Uganda have traditionally received portions of their funding from outside the country. The law imposes penalties of up to 10 years in prison for violations and bans anyone working on behalf of foreign interests from developing or implementing policy without government approval. It also criminalizes promoting the interests of foreigners against Uganda's interests. Rights groups warned the broad wording could allow authorities to criminalize almost any political opposition activity, although government officials accused critics of exaggerating the impact of the bill. Amendments softened earlier provisions requiring all recipients of foreign funds to register as foreign agents and disclose incoming funds publicly. MP Simon Peter Okwalinga backs the sovereignty bill, saying it's key for Uganda and the black race globally. He says it will guarantee full independence and expects it to pass with amendments aligned to the president's directive. Now, this video is by Ankole Times.
Sovereignty bill is a very important bill for our country, not just our country, but for a black race across the globe. Number one, it ensures that we have total independence. Total independence. So it is promoting economic independence of an African state called Uganda. So for that matter, I expect it to sail through without much hurdles.
So you think you don't need any further amendments in this bill? It should go without amendments?
The committee is coming with amendments that in line with the presidential directive. General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the President of the Republic of Uganda, has given guidance on how the bill should proceed, and that's how we shall abide by.
So how nothing useful to add?
We may add to strengthen his position of total independence of an African state called Uganda.
Why do we need this bill?
For total independence of Uganda,
Where has been the
both economic, social, and political.
As committee members, how do you
Not a
feel?
committee member.
I used to.
We have seen
I'm now on presidential.
It's not a committee member.
I'm on presidential affairs. So we are the ones who give directives.
So that bill to square.
That was Senator Peter Okwalinga backing the sovereignty bill in Uganda with a video courtesy of the Ankole Times. Now we swing back to Southern Africa, but of course with Chinese commentary. China sharply criticized Eswatini after the Southern African kingdom hosted Taiwan President Lai Ching-te during a surprise diplomatic visit, with Beijing accusing Eswatini's leaders of being kept and fed by Taiwan. The comments came after Lai returned home following his trip to Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland, one of only 12 countries maintaining formal diplomatic relations with Taiwan. China and Taiwan have long accused each other of using dollar diplomacy to secure international support and developing nations. Beijing considers Taiwan part of its territory and views Lai as a separatist, demanding countries refuse to host or engage with his administration. Taiwan's government stated China pressured Seychelles, Mauritius, and Madagascar into denying overflight permission for Lai's aircraft during an earlier planned trip linked to celebrations marking 40 years since King Mswati III's ascension to the throne. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian described Lai as having stowed away into Eswatini and called the visit a scandal and a farce. Eswatini's acting government spokeswoman Tabile Mdluli condemned the remarks as deeply unfortunate and inconsistent with respect for international discourse between sovereign nations and governments globally. And South Africa's president Cyril Ramaphosa, we are talking about his recent unannounced visit to Zimbabwe, which sparked political controversy after details emerged surrounding the individuals present during engagements with President Emmerson Mnangagwa. Ramaphosa traveled to Zimbabwe at Mnangagwa's invitation, with the two leaders meeting at the Zimbabwean president's Prikabe farm in Kwekwe. Reports indicate discussions focused on bilateral relations and constitutional issues, including proposals linked to extending presidential terms in Zimbabwe. The visit, initially described as private or a working engagement, drew criticism from South Africa's Democratic Alliance, which accused Ramaphosa of endorsing ZANU-PF during a period of political tensions and opposition arrests in Zimbabwe. Attention intensified following the presence of businessmen Wikno Chivayo, Kudakwashe Tagwirei, and Paul Tungwarara, all figures frequently associated with state contracts and political influence. Additional controversy emerged after reports linked Wikno Chivayo to his brother, Joachim G6 Chivayo, who is wanted in South Africa over a gold bar case involving approximately 15 million rand. Presidential spokesman Vincent Magwenya stated Ramaphosa was unaware that one Zimbabwean delegate was considered a person of interest in South Africa. Have a look.
Both presidents agreed to retreat to President Mnangagwa's farm, where they would engage in a relaxed environment and outside of the constraints of presidential formality protocol. Over and above the planned meeting, the president was interested in learning how President Mnangagwa is assisting local farmers in the area that neighbor his farm. As the presidency, we've noted with concern the reports that have since surfaced following this visit by the president to Zimbabwe, identifying an individual who is a person of interest to our law enforcement, who was also present during the visit. President Ramaphosa had no prior knowledge of who would be present during the visit, nor was he familiar with the said individual. The president flew to Zimbabwe for a meeting with his counterpart and nothing else. The president will further encourage our law enforcement agencies to continue with pursuing the matters that are under investigation involving these individuals or individual, and to do so with no fear or any form of hesitation.
Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. Those have been our top stories. Shortly, Arrie Hougaard joins us to deliver the South Africa report. But prior to that, let's have a look at the weather predictions.
In current news in South Africa, it is related to the fuel price that's remaining in the news. The fuel price again and the diesel set to go up on the 6th of May in South Africa again. And the Department of Mineral and Petroleum announced an adjustment to the price, and they made a significant miscalculation first, and that was related to the diesel price. It was first set to go up by R6.19 a litre, but now it's adjusted to R5.27. So it's a big change. So petrol still go up by R3.27 in South Africa per litre, diesel 5.27 as I said, and then paraffin that will also go up by R4.22 per litre, and it is many South Africans that rely on paraffin for stoves in their houses, so that's a big increase as well. Gas also goes up R5.07 per kilogram, and then the consumers brace obviously for the challenges that might come for food prices that may go up, and so many of the food distribution rely on the transport, of course. So the other important component in South Africa that is affected by the petrol price and the diesel price is the taxi fares, and so there's an increase is almost now certain. And at least the good news from South Africa, the two taxi rival groups in Cape Town, they seem to have made peace, and we'll get to what the price of the petrol might be influence on a taxi. But firstly, it is good news that the Cape Amalgamated Taxi Association, that is CATA, and the Congress of Democratic Taxi Association, CODETA, they made peace in Langa in a meeting. So at least they'll be together to adjust the petrol price, or the price that it will cost for consumers, commuters, to travel in Cape Town and all over the country. Roughly about 7 Rand to 20 Rand a medium distance in Cape Town for those taxis, and up to 30 Rand from Khayelitsha to Bellville, which is 20 kilometers. So there's 20,000 taxis in Cape Town, 16,000 of them are legal, and 60% of all travel in Cape Town is by bus or by taxi, and 40% by bus and private. So it's a cash-only system, so lots of revenue lost in the system. So the total value of the taxi industry in South Africa is up to 100 billion South African Rand per year, and about 39 billion South African Rand is spent on fuel annually via the taxi. So it's a massive amount of money. 2 billion Rand is spent on insurance. So about 250 to 300,000 taxis in South Africa. So the taxi increase, the increase in tariffs will have a big impact on the economy in South Africa. Staying with current news in South Africa, it's related to President Cyril Ramaphosa. So the Constitutional Court must rule on Friday in a judgment bid by the EFF to revive the Pala investigation. So the EFF challenged the Parliament's decision, that was way back in the December 2022, not to adopt a Section 89 panel report. So that was a big component of why the EFF filed this in court. So that report found that President Ramaphosa may have a case to answer. So it relates to 9 February 2020, almost 6 years ago now, and it's the last sum of dollars. It was about $600,000 estimated that was stolen at his farm, Pala, and it is close to 10 million Rand converted. So why it is a challenge? It's the lack of exchange control regulations. It was said at the time that the businessman from Sudan bought animals at Pala Game Farm, and that was why the cash was there for. To close off current news, the South African health authorities will also just monitor the Hunter virus that's on board a passenger boat in the Atlantic Ocean. So there's been 2 deaths on board of that, and there's been speculation that there was also a passenger that flew in on a flight to Johannesburg that also passed away, that had contact with people that's on that boat. So that is currently being investigated. That person collapsed at the airport in Johannesburg on the way to a flight to take a return flight to the Netherlands. So we will see how that develops over the week. So that is current news in South Africa. In sport news in South Africa, United Rugby Championship continues, and it is the Stormers that's flying the flag at the moment still for South Africa, leading the URC at the moment, and they have 56 points after 16 games, and if they win their last 2 games, they can have home semi-finals and quarterfinals and final hopefully for them as well. They play against they play against Ulster. That game will be played on Friday evening. That is the South African team, the Stormers, playing that game. At the moment, Glasgow Warriors got the 55 points, the Lions from South Africa 53, Leinster from Ireland 53 points as well, and then the Bulls, they're in 7th position on 49, the Sharks 10th on 36. Other games from South Africa, the Lions play Leinster away, that is on Saturday 6:30. The Bulls play at home against Zebra, that is just before 2 in Pretoria, and then the Sharks at home against Benetton, that is 4 p.m. Also related to South African sport, it is the one of South Africa's golf players, Ulrich Potgieter. He will play in the Truist Golf Championship in Charlotte in the USA at Quail Hollow. That's part of the PGA. Just 72 players qualified for this, and the winner will win $3.6 million US. So players like Rory McIlroy and Matt Fitzpatrick will also play in the tournament. To conclude the sport in South Africa, it is PSL, that is the Premier League soccer football in South Africa. Current standings, Mamelodi Sundowns, they've got 64 points after 27 games. Orlando Pirates, 62 after 27 games. Important games coming up on the 9th and 10th of May. The 9th of May, Mamelodi Sundowns, they play at home against Sewelele Football Club, that is in Pretoria. And then on the 10th of May, Orlando Pirates, they have a away game against Magesi Football Club. That will be at 8 p.m. So that is sports news in South Africa.
In a world where politicians promise the moon and deliver potholes, where democracy sometimes arrives in camouflage and ballots often look like formalities, one show dares to laugh with Africa, at Africa, and sometimes for Africa. This is Second Take, your weekly dose of political satire with an African soul and a global edge. From coups disguised as press briefings to ministers moonwalking past accountability, we serve the real news with sharper writing. Each week we bring you the TikTok of the week, because sometimes the revolution is vertical, and the heartwarming moment of the week to remind us that not everything is burning. We also sit down with the bold, the brilliant, and the brave, voices that question power, stir thought, and spark laughter. Because when the headlines are wild, the leaders are louder, and the truth is lost in translation, we all need a second take.
Entertainment news in South Africa, we go to Kleinmond. That is a town about 90 kilometers east of Cape Town, right on the coastline, and it is part of the Overberg and close to Hermanus. A population of about 6,600 people, but holiday time there's lots more. So lots to do in that area. There's the Handklip Kleinmond Tourism Centre, and there's the Stony Point Nature Reserve, and there you can see penguins in the natural habitat. Then also the Harold Porter National Botanical Gardens, that's also close to Kleinmond, and there's also trail routes and fynbos and waterfalls and parkruns, so lots to do in that area. The Kogel Bay National Reserve is also Cape Floral Kingdom, and you can stay there in eco cabins for holiday time. And also there's gift shops in town. There's a harbour road in town, and that is very popular in that area. There's great restaurants, fish and chips you can get there, of course, as well. And there's also a harbour for fishing, small fishing boats. That's all in Kleinmond if you visit that area. The coastline and the wetlands and the fynbos close to Kleinmond. And then also for the sport lovers, there's a golf course, a 9-hole golf course in Kleinmond. But if you want to play 18 holes, the well-known Arabella Estate is just very close also to Kleinmond. It's a championship golf course. And then also whale watching. It will start now in June soon, and you can see whales there in that area from June to November. Also horse riding on the beach. So it's a popular area, that is Kleinmond. That's a popular area for all tourists to visit from Namibia and all over the world. That is close to Cape Town. That is entertainment news in South Africa.